Have you been struggling to make your child listen to you? Have you been wondering that it's always you who's listening to the child, but rarely the child listens to you? Or have you been also thinking or wondering, saying that you kind of listen to your child at most of the instances in your day? You allow video time for him, you allow junk time for him, but still your child rarely listens to you, rarely does what you expect him to do, be it reading or writing. If you are in this dilemma, that means you definitely are aiming for your child to be obedient, right? All of us, all the adults out there and all the parents out there, we feel so proud when someone says that your child is so obedient, your child just doesn't create any trouble. Let's dig deeper into what is obedience and is it really necessary? Is it an important trait? If you look at traits of any successful person or an achiever, is it really an important trait of a person to achieve big in life? Hey there, welcome to the PIP podcast, Parenting Through Inner Power, and you are here in this episode where we're going to understand about what obedience is, what does it mean to a child, and why do adults actually wish their little ones to be obedient to them. Adults, I mean, the adult could be either a parent or a teacher. Usually, most of the times, 95 to 98% of the times, the parent's goal or even the teacher's goal is to have an obedient child in the class, right? Just do whatever the teacher is instructing him to do, ask no questions, cause no trouble, don't talk to anybody around, just do what he was being asked to do. And that is what obedience is, right? What is the meaning of obedience? Obedience literally means obeying to another person's instructions out of respect to the authority. Right? Just go to Google and type out meaning of obedience or obedience meaning in the search bar, and you will get to these terms that actually these terms, for example, like authority, instructions, rules, monastic rule, right? So yeah, just look what the literal meaning of obedience is. Now, when you are wishing your child to be obedient, again, even before your child has gone to school, even as an infant, you've always been consistently been focusing on, is my child listening to me? And if you actually look around and if you're actually conscious when parents, some group of parents are talking to each other, or even grandparents are talking to the parents, the most usual question is, does your child listen to you? Right? Does he listen to you? Does she listen to you? But my big question to you right now is, why should your child listen to you? Maybe nobody asked you. Maybe you had asked when you were a child. Maybe your asking was suppressed. Maybe your questioning, your ability to question was skilled. But have the courage and ask for yourself, why should the child obey you? Right? Now, as long as you are looking at this relation as, I am always listening to my child is never listening to me, or at the end of the day, you are kind of talking to your child saying, I listened to you 15 times today, but you hardly listen to even one time when I'm telling you to do this now. As long as you are doing this, it just becomes a conflict between egos. There are no feelings that are actually processed. There are no emotions that are actually understood. But it just becomes a conflict between egos of two humans. Now, you might have also noticed this, that until 1 year or maybe 14 months to 18 months of age, you would have noticed your infant, your little child, doing all that you instruct him to do or instruct her to do. And around 18 months or more seen, when the child is actually 2 years, your child starts to not do what is asked to be done. Why? Why did this happen? Does it happen only at that point of time, at that moment when the child is actually saying, when the child is actually not doing what you ask him to do? And then there are so many queries, again a very common type of queries from parents of children of this age. My child has always been listening to me until now, but suddenly these days he or she is actually not listening to me. She'll do just the opposite to what I ask him to do, I ask her to do. I think he does this wantedly. Just because I'm asking him to do in a certain way, he chooses to do it in another way. What can I do? How can I make my child listen to me? How can I instruct him to do what I ask him to do? Again, if that is your question, if that is the way you are framing your question, then just please, it's my humble request to you, please go back and look at the words that you are using to frame that question. See if it's really the right question to ask at that moment from a little child. Why should your child listen to you is the big question that I am asking you. Why should the child listen to you? So feel free to connect with me over Facebook or even my mail ID, that is sujaya@nurturinglove.in, and even under the podcast in the description box you see there is a link through which you can meet me live. So make note of all the questions that you have as you are listening to this podcast, this episode, and make sure you just come back with your questions. Until you do not resolve your questions, you will still continue to act, to use the same words that you've been using all this while. Yeah. So now coming back, so yes, around 1.5 years or 2 years, what happens is, oh my God, my child has suddenly started to not listen to me. What can I do? No, dear parent, it's not about listening to you. No, it's not about whether your child is listening to you or not listening to you. It's about what is the child choosing to do. Why is the child choosing to do it, whatever the child has chosen? What just happened before, right? What were the kind of experiences that your child had before the child has chosen to do this? Maybe you are asking your 1.5-year-old or 2-year-old to not turn on that switch, that fan switch or light switch or whatever it is, but your child is continuing to turn it on, to just play with it, right? Yes, there is some amount of fear coming from your side, but yes, your child is doing just what you ask him not to do. So just try to understand why is he doing it, and what actually happened prior this. What were the kind of experiences that he had before whenever he has done this action that is leading him to do this action. So most often, again, what happens is, until 1.5 years or 2 years, we feel that the child has never actually said no until then, but now my child has started to say no or do what is supposed to be, or what is not supposed to be done. But no, it didn't happen overnight, dear parent. It didn't happen overnight. Even during infancy, the kind of instructions that you've been giving to your child, that you felt that your child is actually following what you said, that doing what you ask him to do, your child is doing, because your child has still not acquired the ability to do in the reverse way, to say no. When your child gets that ability, acquires that ability, again, by nature, by design, by choice, acquires that ability to say no at around 2-year or 2.5-year-old, that is what your child will say to you. And you are wondering, until now my child has never said no, until now my child has always been doing what I ask him to do. Sometimes I use threats, sometimes I use that person will beat you, and still my child, and then my child used to just do it, or I used to say security will take you away, or I used to say God will punish you, and my child will just do what I ask him to do, and now he's suddenly saying no. What happened to him? No. Dear parent, it didn't happen overnight. This kind of no didn't come overnight in your child. All the experiences that your child kept having all through since the moment the child was actually conceived in your womb, and until that point of time, all these experiences have piled up unresolved emotions, unresolved feelings within the child. Even at that moment when your child was a 10-month-old or 11-month-old, your child picked a stone and you threatened your child dropped a stone, your child still wanted to pick that stone at that point of time. But he didn't pick, and you are thinking that he listened to you. When the same child is 2-year-old, not even 2-year-old actually, 1.5-year-old, the child will start picking stones. Even if you say no, the child will still pick the stone. And please try to understand that all of these are positive traits of actually successful people, right? If you want to resolve any situation, then go narrow into that situation, understand what kind of feelings a child is having in that situation, in that experience, what kind of emotions the child is actually bombarded with, how you can help your child to process these feelings, to process these emotions. It starts with you. It starts with you becoming conscious of how you are doing at that moment. It starts with you becoming conscious of what kind of thoughts, feelings and emotions you are carrying at any moment. And this will simply reflect in the way you are playing the role of a parent, right? So when you're coming back to the big question, why should the child listen to you, right? Or what should you be doing for your child to listen to you, the question that you have. So thing is simple. Each person acts according to the level of awareness that's present at that point of time, as well as the kind of environment that is set up, the kind of conditioning that is happening to him or to her until that point. So until your child was 1.5-year-old, 2-year-old, until your child has acquired the ability to do something that's asked not to do or to say no, until that point of time, your child is actually absorbing some amount of, or maybe large amounts of false conditioning that is actually happening on your child's subconscious. So all of this is just being shown off, is just being displayed through physical behavior at the point of time when your child has acquired the ability to display it, right? It's not something that has happened overnight. It is not something that you have done just a day before, but it is a cumulative result of all the experiences that your child has been having since the moment he or she was conceived in your womb, and even after taking birth. Yes. So yes, going back. So your child, whatever your child has done, is based on the level of awareness and all the conditioning that is actually happening over on that person. Even you have gone through all of that, and even at this point of time there is false conditioning that is happening to you on your subconscious, right? Okay, so going back to your child, so all that your child did at that moment was the best that your child could do at that moment, depending again on the level of awareness, on the conditioning that has happened, depending on the experiences that the child has had, depending on the thoughts, the feelings and the emotions the child has at that point of time, right? Depending on all of these, whatever the child did was the best that he could do. So when you are focusing on that child should listen to all that I say, my child should listen to all that I say, my child has to be an obedient child. I feel so good when my child's teacher actually says that, oh my god, your child is such an obedient child, he does all the homework just as he's asked for, or he just does everything whatever he's asked for. And you also recall some situations from your some experiences from your childhood when you were an obedient child, and how happy you were, how proud and happy your parent was or your teacher was when your teacher was actually telling about you or praising you, saying she's such an obedient child, he's such an obedient child, he just doesn't cause any trouble in the class, right? So all these again are false statements that like troublemakers are bad, or again depending on what the situation is, what the experience is. The thing is the bad part is highlighted, and this is what is causing some amount of false conditioning to happen on your subconscious. So now you feel the same amount of happiness, the same amount of pride when you think of your child as an obedient child. guests have started walking into your house, and your child is just doing what all that you ask your child to do, recite A to Z. Yes, your child is reciting A to Z. Whatever it is, depending on your child's age. Again, maybe dance, maybe sing, maybe do that drama, do that party, or whatever it is again, right? And all the guests are praising you. Oh my God, your child listens to you at every moment of time. Your child is such an obedient child, right? You feel very happy, you feel very proud. But what is happening to the child in this journey? Your child, who's always saying yes, yes, yes to all that the adult is asking the child to do, is becoming a people-pleasing personality, right? A people-pleasing person. And the same child, even when the child is an adult, when the child is a teenager, an adult, a mother, a father, a mother-in-law, a father-in-law, or son-in-law, or daughter-in-law, or employee, or friend, or business person, businessman, businesswoman, they will continue to say yes, 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 yes to everybody out there, because they've been trained to do so. So what would have, okay, so if you didn't expect your child to be obedient, so how would your child actually process all this? How would your child know what to do at that moment of time, right? This could be your next question. So how do you process any okay, you are facing any challenge, so how do you process it, right? So you actually first think about all the options that are available. Think about all the options that are available. Okay, I'm playing this. Okay, my mother is calling for mealtime. And then you discriminate. Maybe you think of all the consequences that will happen when I do this action. Okay, there are some options. If I do the action A, then these are the consequences. With action B, these are the consequences. With action C, these are the consequences. Right? And you discriminate what is right for you to do at that point of time. And then you do it. And then you act it. And whatever you've done at that point of time is the most healthy action that you could do at that point of time. It could be right, it could be wrong. And mind you wouldn't know if it is right or wrong at that point of time. If you knew it was wrong at that point of time when you did it, you wouldn't have done it. Only after an hour or after a day or after 5 years, you realize that maybe that was not the right action that I did at that point of time. But when you did it, it was the best that you could do. It was the most healthy action that you could pick out of the options that you had. So in the same way, if you give your child the time, space and freedom to be with himself, to be with herself, be with her thoughts and process what he is doing, what is expected to be done, what are the options, what are the consequences, and believe me, even an infant can do this. Even an infant can do this. Even an 1-year-old can do this. Even a 2-year-old can do this. It is all up to, all of it depends on what kind of environment the parent is setting for the child. Are you giving your child the time, space and freedom? The 3 biggest resources that any child can actually treasure for his entire life. Are you giving these 3 most important resources to your child? The time, space and freedom to be his or her own. So your child will go through this process of thinking, discriminating, and then deciding to take up and do the healthy action. If your child is again not being taken, basically nature takes your child through this. You need not worry about it. As long as you provide a healthy environment. So when this is not happening, what is happening? Your child is losing his own ability to think, discriminate and take a healthy action. And this will just reflect on even how your child is acting or what your child is doing, even when your child is a teenager or an adult, or all the other roles that your child is playing when your child is a grown-up, right? I am your friend, I love you so much, can't you do this for me? The same dialogue that you use for your child. I am your mother, I love you so much, can't you do this for me? Right? And your child has just become a people-pleasing person, doing all that people ask him to do all through I can't say life because I just don't want your child's life to be this way, but all through the time until at that point of time when your child actually realizes that no, this is not what I actually want to do. This is not how I actually want to be. I wanted to take decisions on my own. And as an infant, as a toddler, your child had this ability, your child had this skill, had this ability, and it was just a matter of utilizing this ability and exercising his skill and skilling it up, right? Taking that skill to the next level, to the next level, to the next level. And it depended on you. It required your efforts, it requires your presence, it requires your patience. So now it boils down to how you would like to look at your child in terms of obedience. Do you want your child to be obedient, or do you wish your child to think, discriminate, and take up and ultimately do the healthy action that he decides to do? Cheers, bye-bye.